So, my name is Cole Durham. I'm the founding director of the center here. It's quite amazing for me to look out at this event and remember what it was like 25 years ago when we stitched this event together with a lot fewer people, Scotch tape and Band-Aids, and special certificates from Delta Airlines that you could fly. Once you got across the Atlantic, you could fly from airport to airport for $50.
Boy, that one again.
Anyway, there are a lot of memories. But at this point, it's my real privilege to introduce Ambassador Sam Brownback. He is the 5th Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom under the International Religious Freedom Act. And we've had the opportunity of working over the years with each ambassador at large. And it's been a great privilege for our center to get to know and to be able to work with people in that office. Ambassador Brownback, when he came to this office, came with more political background, I suppose, than anyone who had been in that office before. He was in the Senate at the time that the International Religious Freedom Act was passed in 1998, and I remember him as being one of the go-to senators that people on the Hill worked with, and that act went through a lot of work on the Hill before it became a law that was unanimously adopted. He's also had the experience of being the governor of Kansas from 2011 to 2018. Prior to his time in the Senate, he was also a member of the U.S. House. He also brings just tremendous expertise, both legal expertise, concern for other issues. He was, as I say, one of the people with real expertise working on these issues when IRFA was passed. And then this summer, he has launched with Secretary Pompeo the Ministerial on Religious Freedom. I don't have the full technical name in front of me, but this is a major event. I remember the date. It was the 24th of July, which many of you in the audience will know why I remember that date. Made it a little harder for some of our Mormons to, members of the Church of Jesus Christ, to attend that because it's our Pioneer Day here. But this is a very significant initiative that's been picked up by and followed by people in many countries around the world, and is going to be an ongoing initiative. So let me, without taking more of your time, turn it over to Senator Brownback. You can tell I'm old. I say Senator, Ambassador, yeah.
Thanks, Cole. Thank you, Cole. Appreciate that very much. Pleasure to join you, to be here on this beautiful fall day, coming in. And I have heard much about this conference from my office, so I was excited about the prospect of being able to be here and to be a part of it. What I'd like to do in the time that I've been allotted is speak for probably about 15 minutes and open up for questions for whatever time's remaining, or comments, because I know this is a very cerebral and experienced audience, and so I'd love to be able to get some of your expertise back and forth to me. First, I couldn't go any further without recognizing Cole and his part in doing this. And this is the 25th anniversary of the Symposium on top of that, which is amazing. Really one of the forerunners in this field. Cole, congratulations to you, and thank you to BYU for hosting this for so long. That's fantastic. Let's give him a round of applause if you don't mind doing that. Thank you. And then I want to recognize briefly, if I could, some of my colleagues. We've got my Canadian counterpart is here. I think you were on a panel earlier this morning. My counterpart from Denmark I had lunch with was here. Where are we over there? Yeah. And then Juan Figuel. Jan is just, he's been one of the real mainstays, and with the European, really the whole group. And he's just done a fantastic job. He's got a great heart on top of it, and I look forward to working with all of them and more. We're recruiting more ambassadors for religious freedom from other countries. So we need a lot of us because there's a lot of work to do out there, and we're going to keep pushing it. If I could start the point I'd like to finish with, and that really would be this: from the administration, from this administration, we care deeply about this issue. This is a fundamental right that we're going to push for. I was recruited for this job by the Vice President while I was serving as governor. I was in my last year in office and left to take this position because I believe it's so foundational. The administration believes it's so foundational, and we're going to fight for it. This was the first ever religious freedom ministerial where we collected foreign ministers and representatives from 84 different countries this July. After a 58-day notice, we gave the world 58 days notice that we're going to do this. We had 84 countries present. We had over 400, 500 people from civil society and religious groups come together to talk about religious freedom. And the point of it that we stand for is a point about human dignity, which your conference is centered on. We believe that this is a God-given right, that you have the right given by God to select and do with your own soul what you see fit, what you choose to do. And that is your right, and that no government has the right to interfere with that, period, full stop. This is your right. And that applies to everybody, everywhere, with every belief or no belief at all. And that this is also not only just a part of human dignity, it's also a part of good governance. If you will do this, and government's role in this is to protect the right. It's not to pick a winner or loser. It's not to say we favor this faith over that one. It's not to say we don't pick any faith here or there. We don't pick a faith. We protect the right. That's the government's job, is to protect the right to religious freedom. And that if governments will do that, will protect that right to religious freedom, you're going to have a more prosperous country. You're going to release spiritual capital over the entire nation as people of faith come forward, find they can practice their faith freely, and they can then start to form schools and hospitals and institutions of higher learning and churches or synagogues or mosques or whatever the case might be. You're going to release all that into society, and on top of that, I sound like one of those 1995 commercials where on top of that we'll also give you, on top of that we'll also give you less terrorism and more economic growth. And that's in the academic data now as well. So that this is just a good that keeps on giving. And religious freedom is foundational to the United States. It's certainly foundational here. Here was a group that came to Utah off of a lot of persecution that had happened in the United States to them, and founded a place and struggled and survived and thrived and grew forth. But we as a nation have attracted people seeking religious freedom since our very beginnings. So we fundamentally believe in this right. We believe in it for everybody, everywhere, and with this administration, we're going to fight for it. This is the 20th year of the International Religious Freedom Act. This month will be the 20-year celebration since we started. We're a little younger than this conference is. But it was started because a number of us in Congress didn't think State Department was taking matters of religious freedom or really taking faith seriously enough in foreign policy. Not that you don't want to use faith in foreign policy, but you want to recognize that people around the world, most people around the world, make decisions based on their faith. And if you don't understand faith, if you don't work with people of faith, you're going to be missing a majority of people in the world. So that was why the original act was pushed, was passed, and we're going to be pushing it seriously as well. This is also the 75th anniversary of the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that enshrined this right for everybody with the countries that signed on. And I want to read that. You've probably already had somebody read it to you at this conference, but it's just so good and clear, and it should be the basis, the starting point that we all start from with this. It goes simply this: everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, including the freedom to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others and in public or private to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Very clear, very clear to governments, and it's not a governmental right. It's an individual right. It's an individual right of your human dignity that you have. So as we celebrate all these anniversaries, 25th of this, 20th of Earth, 70th of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and this, how are we doing in the world on religious freedom? And unfortunately, I think my answer, if I were being honest, and I am with you, I don't think we're doing very good. Pew does a regular survey of people of religious freedom and on a number of different topics, and finds that nearly 80% of the world's population lives in an atmosphere of some form of significant religious restriction or persecution. 80% of the world, in spite of this being 70 years ago that the world signs on with this agreement that this is your fundamental right that you have. We've got too many restrictions. So that's why the United States government, we're going to push this. We did a ministerial, as I stated. We're going to do another ministerial this next year on it. We're working on the dates. I hope all of you can attend the ministerial when it comes up this next year. I think it'll be triple the size of the one this year, where we'll have more planning time. We're working with other countries around the world to host regional religious freedom forums. I was with the Mongolian foreign minister the other day. They want to host one of Buddhist countries to talk about religious freedom in their region. I was talking with my Danish counterpart here about hosting a European one. To talk in context in their regions about religious freedom, the nature and the problems in their particular areas and what needs to take place there. So I hope a number of you can attend and work with those meetings. We've got to be pushing on this, and we've got to be together as a world community that's committed to freedom of religion because of the difficulty we're seeing so many people having in so many places around the world. And just to name a few of those, we're seeing, unfortunately, in China, deeper restrictions on religious freedom taking place in that nation now. The Uyghurs in Xinjiang and the western part of China, we're seeing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people put into re-education camps because of their faith, and trying to move that out, where China is using big data systems to watch, to observe, to limit, and to re-educate people. We're seeing in China as well house churches being closed. We're even seeing official churches being closed. We're seeing crosses being taken down. You can't buy the Bible online now, and significant growth in religious restrictions taking place there. Unfortunately, China is not the only situation in the world. We see in neighboring Myanmar, Burma, the Rohingya population, which is dominantly Muslim, being literally driven out of the country. Big portion because of their faith taking place. We're seeing the same happening to the Kachin in Burma, a group that's dominantly Christian. We're seeing in Turkey an American pastor put in jail being a pastor in Turkey. This administration has taken a very aggressive stance on this and many others, and Andrew Brunson is now out on house arrest, but people are not going to stop in this administration until he's free and able to practice his faith the way he sees fit. We see in northern Iraq, ISIS committed genocide against the Yazidis and the Christian population. I was in there in the first part of July and meeting with Yazidi women that had been taken as sexual concubines, as slaves, people that had been killed simply because they didn't believe the way somebody else believed. Churches desecrated, people killed because they didn't agree with the people, what they put forward. We see in North Korea people persecuted for their faith. At the ministerial, we had a lady speak there that had gotten out of North Korea, but once she got out of North Korea into China, she was trafficked, got pregnant, was caught, sent back to North Korea, and forced to have an abortion without anesthesia because of her traveling out and her being a person of faith as well. We see problems in the Middle East, where you've got a historic Christian population being literally run out of a number of countries. You see Muslim populations in the Middle East that don't agree with the dominant Muslim view in that particular, the particular Muslim view, being persecuted and kicked out of areas. This is just a bit of what's taking place in the world today. And we're going to push against that. We believe in this administration that the gates of religious freedom can and will fly open around the world because it is a fundamental right. It is a part of human dignity. It is a part of what people have signed on, governments have signed on around the world to participate in, and we're going to see that they do that. We believe that the Iron Curtain prohibiting religious freedom is going to come down around the world so that people can move, that they can exercise this fundamental right. We believe we're at a turning point of human history. The governments are starting to see that this is a fundamental part of growth, and it's a fundamental part of security as well. We believe, as I stated, more religious freedom leads to more freedoms, leads to more freedom of assembly, leads to more freedom of expression, leads to a better and a growing country and society. For all those reasons, I'm delighted to be in this job. I'm delighted to push these things, to work with the BYU Center here, to work with other nations on this great cause. I travel often. I would invite you to another event, not only the ministerial this next year when it takes place. I hope you can attend that. But every Tuesday that I'm in Washington, we hold a religious freedom roundtable, usually on Capitol Hill. Goes from 11 to noon every Tuesday, and we invite anybody interested in religious freedom to come. We let people speak 3-4 minutes to express what's going on in their country, what's going on in their particular area. And we've been getting a great discussion and building that synergy, because to get these things to move, it takes not only government, it takes civil society, it takes the faith community, it takes the legal community, it takes all of us pulling together to really push this fundamental freedom on forward. And that's where you come in. You can continue to be that. You can network in with these groups or others to help push this in your country, in your region, and you can network with us and saying, here's what's taking place in our particular area, so that we can know about that and hopefully help to push religious freedom in that particular neighborhood or area or country as well. So thank you for allowing me to be here and with you today. Thank you for sponsoring this for 25 years and being one of the precursors to the IRF Act that's been so important. And I hope together we really can push these gates of religious freedom open around the world, and soon, so people just aren't persecuted simply for what they believe in. What they hold fundamentally in their own heart is the right thing for them to do. Thank you very much for letting me speak. God bless you all.
So as Ambassador Brownback said, he's willing to take questions. I suggest we gather maybe 3, and so questions from the audience.
More comments. I want to hear.
More comments.
I got such a good audience here of smart people. I'd love to hear from you what we think we ought to hear about.
So
yes, sir.
One of the things that some of us try to do is to figure out how to mobilize grassroots support for religious freedom. And from your perspective, you know, in a federal capacity, in a state capacity, what have you begun to think are things that individual people who believe in this, and there's a lot of support for this at the grassroots, but what can they do? What should they do? What can be things that grassroots individual people can do to bolster support for religious freedom where they stand? I think that's something I'm interested in hearing people talk about.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because that's this movement. I helped carry the original human trafficking bill as well, and that's really spawned a nice grassroots movement. There's lots of grassroots movements going on this, and it's important, but this one hasn't. There's a lot of energy, but it hasn't been very well organized. I think there are 2 things really that people ought to look at doing. Number one, in your area, in your group, your civic group, your church group, your college group, to pick a country where you have made some contact, or you can contact people of faith that are being persecuted. bring somebody to that group that will testify and will speak about here's what's taking place in Nigeria, or Rwanda, or China, or Iran, or that will come and speak and then say, and here's how you can connect into it. I was in northern Iraq. There is a diocese in Arizona that's helping rebuild homes for people of persecuted faith in that area of northern Iraq, this particular church community. And they just made a personal connection there between those two. And it takes about $2,500 a home to rebuild these homes in northern Iraq. And this diocese in Arizona is doing much of it. Perfect. Great example. There's 1,000 of them around the world like that. So find that personal, direct connection. The second is this needs a movement on college campuses. And I don't know why BYU wouldn't be a good place to start it, where you would say, bring a group of people of faith or no faith together and say, we will stand for religious freedom. This last Tuesday at our roundtable, we had a group of Chinese Uyghurs, Falun Gong, Christian House Church, and there was another group or two that were all there speaking about what's happening to them in China today. Each of them are being persecuted, all of different types of faith. And I said, you guys need to go together to the National Press Club so they can see this isn't just about Muslims or Christians or Falun Gong. This is about everybody and about a government persecuting people. And stand there and tell the world, look, this is happening to us in China today. And that's what needs to be going on the college campuses is people, because they'll say, well, if you're just picking one religion or another, I'm not sure about this, that. No, we're not picking any religion. This is about your freedom. This is about your freedom of religion and listening to these people that are persecuted and that they're being thrown in jail or organs are being harvested or they're being trafficked or just, you hear the stories and they, as a good red-blooded American, they make your blood boil because you're going, doggone it, that isn't fair. That shouldn't happen. When I hear that somebody's kicked out of their country just because of what they believe in, it makes me mad. Because that shouldn't happen. And we need that to get started on the college campuses of a movement of religious, this is about religious freedom, or call it spiritual freedom if you want to do that. If you don't like the term religious freedom, I don't care, but it's about your fundamental right to do with your own soul what you see fit. Those two things really need to get going and happening. It'd be nice if we had somebody in Hollywood step up or a big sports figure step up too.
Okay, so we'll take, I'm sorry to point, and then Ohad and Helen Leon at the back. Okay, those three.
And we'll work with you if you get any of those things going. Our office will work with you. Howard, hold your hand up so people know who to corner afterwards.
With all those different crises going on at the same time, how does your office prioritize or figure out where you'll travel to in a given week? Yeah, that's a tough one, honestly, because you got things all over the world. And what we ended up doing is really trying to triage where we think we can get the most where we think we can get something done and accomplished. And sometimes they're hot events happening in places. I was recently in the Ukraine, and you've got a gentleman here from the Ukraine. Hold your hand up, sir, a couple of you. Where the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has been seeking to split from create its own Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and there was a timeliness to that. And then I was in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is moving the other way than other countries, and it's opening up for religious freedom. And so we said, good, we want to work with you. We want to see this take place. We want you to be the model for Central Asia, because we want to see religious freedom open for all Central Asia. We want to see it for the world, but we'll start here in Uzbekistan, and we'll go to the entire region to have it open up. And so often it's just kind of targets of opportunity that we work on. And then it's Washington, where I'm based out of, so a lot of times you just get drug into what's happening, and there's a lot going on.
Okay, so.
Hello. In the Potomac Declaration and Action Plan, there is information about the need to establish an international day commemorating victims and survivors of religious persecution. And I wanted to check what is the progress on that proposal.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. we wanted to get an international day recognizing people that have been persecuted for their faith. And those discussions are moving on forward with people in international bodies, UN as well, to discuss what that day is. And I think we'll get it done here within the next, my hope is within the next few months, to get that set to where it can be recognized and have a rallying day around this. But this is an idea I think people have kicked around for a while, but needed to get more oomph behind it to happen. But my hope is we'll get it done in the next few months. Thank you.
So, Helen.
About 4 years ago, Cole was coming out to Orlando, Florida. Excuse my voice, I have a bit of a frog. To give a fireside, and I was on the hospital board, so I went to the chairman, who was high up in the Baptist church, and said, "Do you think we can do a freedom of religion?" We now have a rabbi, an imam, the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, and the LDS Church. Reverend Saperstein is speaking at our one in February.
Good.
You can get a group. We've had up to 600 people come to our meetings.
That's fantastic. Well, there you go. There's a way of doing some grassroots. I did one the other night in McLean, Virginia, and had a big crowd of people, and most of them had some sort of personal connection to somebody that was persecuted. You know, this is not an uncommon thing, and it does move people to action. So I hope you can keep having that, and maybe some other groups can start having meetings like that. And if you're looking for speakers, you can contact our office on it too, because we work regularly with people that have been in prison or gotten out of prison or asylees in the United States. And fortunately, we're able to get a number of them out. And also, when they come here then, they're emissaries. They're ambassadors for what's happening in their locale to tell the rest of the world about it. So people can know and be empowered to act.
Well, I wish we had a lot more time. I'm sure that I know more about the ambassador's schedule, and so I know that he needs to get to some other meetings. But please join me in thanking him for being with us and for the work that he's doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.